A single attacker sends one small request. The target receives a flood thousands of times larger. The attacker never directly touches the victim. That's the trick between two of the most volumetric attacks on the modern internet: reflection and amplification. First, we'll talk about DDoS. Denial of service is the parent category. The goal is simple: make a resource unavailable to the people who are supposed to use it. That resource could be a website, an API, a game server, an authoritative DNS server, or even an internal application behind a corporate firewall. A regular denial of service attack comes from one source. That's just DOS. The distributed version is DDoS. DDoS uses many sources at once. That distribution is what makes it more dangerous. Filtering one attack is relatively easy. Filtering 100,000 attacks spread across every continent becomes a lot more challenging. It's a completely different problem. When you hear DDoS, think of 3 layers of victim. There's the final target, there's the infrastructure that the target depends on, like its upstream provider, and there are the unwitting third parties who get pulled into the attack without their knowledge. Reflected and amplified attacks specifically weaponize that third group. Reflection is a technique, not a protocol. The attacker sends a request to a public server but spoofs the source IP address in that request. The spoofed source IP is the victim's address. The public server, having no way to actually verify who sent the packet, sends its response to the victim. The victim is now receiving a response from a server it never actually contacted. So it's getting traffic as if it had sent a request. Now that bounce is the reflection. The attacker is hidden behind the reflector. To anyone watching incoming traffic at the victim, the attack appears to come from legitimate, well-known internet services. Reflection on its own doesn't multiply traffic. A 1-byte spoofed request produces a 1-byte reflected response. That's still useful for hiding the attacker, but it's not yet devastating. The devastation comes when reflection is combined with amplification. Reflection requires 2 specific conditions to work. First, the protocol being abused has to be connectionless, because a protocol requiring a handshake will fail when it goes to a victim who never initiated the connection. That's why reflection attacks live almost entirely in the UDP world. Second, the attacker's network needs to permit source IP address spoofing, anything that's obvious. Networks that implement ingress filtering, often called BCP38, drop spoofed packets at the edge, so that shuts down that class of attack. Now, amplification is the size multiplier, amplify. The attacker picks a protocol where a small request triggers a much larger response. The ratio between response size and request size is called the amplification factor. If a 50-byte query causes the server to send back a 5,000-byte answer, the amplification factor is 100. The attacker just gained a 100 times bandwidth multiplier for free. Multiply that across thousands of reflectors, and you turn a modest attacker uplink into hundreds of gigabits per second of inbound traffic at the victim. Amplification only matters because of reflection. The two are almost always combined in the wild. This is why you see them written together as reflected amplification attacks. Reflection hides the attacker, while the amplification gives the attacker leverage. This is the answer to a question many people have when they first see these attacks. How can an attacker with a 1 gigabit home connection take down a target with a 100 gigabit pipe? And the answer is leverage. It makes me think about how I've gotten a couch upstairs before. Without being very strong, I use leverage. It's kind of like that. The attacker is not actually generating the flood. The reflectors are generating the flood. The attacker is only generating the trigger. The protocols that get abused are the ones that meet 3 criteria. They run over UDP, they're widely deployed on the public internet, and they have a large response to request size ratio. DNS open resolvers were the original poster child. A small query, especially one asking for a large record type, can produce responses many dozens of times larger than the request. DNS amplification factors commonly range from around 28 to 54, depending on the query and the record. NTP, the network time protocol, was abused heavily in the year 2014 through a command called monlist, M-O-N-L-I-S-T. Monlist asked an NTP server to return its list of recent clients, and the response can be several hundred times larger than the request. NTP amplification factors of roughly 556 are widely cited. SSDP, the Simple Service Discovery Protocol, it's used by UPnP devices on home networks. That was used once millions of customer routers and smart devices were left exposed on the public internet. Amplification factors here typically land around 30. CharGen, an old diagnostic protocol that almost nobody uses on purpose anymore, can produce ratios in the hundreds because its entire job is to spit out streams of characters. Memcached briefly held the record. In 2018, attackers discovered memcached servers exposed on UDP port 11 could yield amplification factors above 50,000. GitHub absorbed a 1.35 terabit per second attack in February of that year, built almost entirely from memcached reflectors. The pattern is consistent. Every few years, a new vector gets discovered. Then it gets exploited at scale. Then it gets gradually mitigated as operators patch, filtered, or take affected services off the public internet. We'll walk through a single reflected amplified packet. Step 1. The attacker crafts the UDP packet. The destination is a vulnerable public server. You could say an open DNS resolver. The source IP address in the packet header is forged. It points at the victim, not the attacker. Step 2. The packet leaves the attacker's network. If that network does no egress filtering, the packet sails out onto the public internet. Step 3. The open resolver receives the query. It has no way to know that the source was forged because UDP has no handshake. It looks up the answer and prepares a response. Step 4. The resolver sends its response to the IP address that was forged that it sees in the source header of the packet. And we already know that is the address of the victim. Step 5. The victim sends a response to a query that it never sent. If the attacker did this once, the victim ignores it. But the attacker is doing this thousands of times per second across thousands of reflectors. Each reflector contributes a tiny share to the flood, but the aggregate of them all saturates the victim. The victim now sees inbound traffic from thousands of legitimate-looking servers. Blocking any individual reflector accomplishes very little. Blocking that traffic entirely may break legitimate use of the protocol for the victim's own users. That tension is, of course, what makes reflected amplification so painful to mitigate. So defenses split into two camps. Things the rest of the internet can do to prevent these attacks, and things the victim can do once the attack is underway. The upstream defense is ingress filtering, often called BCP38. Every ISP, internet service provider, should be dropping outbound packet whose source IP does not belong to a customer of that provider. If every network on Earth did this, this kind of IP spoofing would die overnight, and this kind of reflected amplification would die with it. But in practice, adoption is uneven, and that's why these attacks still work. Operators of services that can be abused as reflectors should be restricting their services. Recursive DNS resolvers should not be open to the public internet. NTP servers should disable monlist. Memcached should never listen on UDP and should never be exposed externally. And SSDP should not face the internet. On the victim side, the standard playbook is anycast routing combined with traffic scrubbing at scale. Anycast spreads incoming traffic across many geographically distributed nodes. So a flood that would saturate a single data center would spread across dozens. Scrubbing centers then inspect the diluted traffic and drop anything that matches known amplification protocols. Rate limiting on UDP ports tied to common reflection vectors is another layer. Smaller organizations rarely have the bandwidth to absorb a serious amplification attack on their own. The realistic option is a commercial DDoS mitigation service that sits in front of the network and takes the hit on the victim's behalf. Let's think about the cleanest distinction to remember. Reflection is about identity. The attacker hides by bouncing traffic off of a third party so that the third party is who is seen instead of the attacker. And amplification is about volume. The attacker chooses a protocol that returns far more than it receives. So each spoofed request lands harder than it left. When you see them combined, which is the common case, reflected amplification, the attacker is hiding behind reflectors while extracting a size multiplier from the protocols those reflectors speak. Reflected and amplified both at the same time.